Funding for this program is brought to you by Bismarck Big Boy. From pizza burgers flying style to fast and delicious fried chicken, Bismarck Big Boy has been a local legend since 1954.
Dad said, come back, we need your help run the business. And he took me down to the office the first day, and he sat behind his desk for 45 minutes with a cardboard box on top of his desk, going through all the drawers and picking pieces of memorabilia. And when he got done, he picked up the box, walked over to the door, stopped, looked back at me, and gave a sweeping motion with his arm and said, "It's all yours," and he left. And he never came back.
The Thompson family arrived in Bismarck in 1895. After working in a local hardware store, Harry Abbott Thompson started his own plumbing and heating business, H.A. Thompson and Sons, in 1908. Along with owning his own business, Harry served as a city commissioner and was Bismarck's first full-time fire chief. His son, Harry Abbott Thompson II, took over the business after his father's death in 1935 and also served as a state legislator. The family legacy continued when Harry, Tom, Abbott Thompson III became the president of the family business in 1975. Over the years, the Thompson family has played a major role in the construction of countless homes and many iconic buildings throughout Bismarck.
Isaac Woodman Thompson, my great-great-grandfather, he brought his family here in 1883. And my grandfather moved to Bismarck in 1894. But he had been working in Bismarck before then. He had been working at a hardware store. And in 1895, he met my grandmother, and they got married. And they started their family in, I guess it was 1897. He became the first paid fire chief in Bismarck in 1901. He was the fire chief when the state capitol burned in December 28th of 1930. When he first became fire chief, they had no motorized fire truck. It was a wagon pulled by horses, a pumper wagon that guys had to manually pump. There were no pumps that you turned on and they spread the water. So it was some very meager, some of the photos that we have, the one photo he's standing on the running boards of one of the first fire trucks that the city of Bismarck had. So it was, I always heard that my grandfather's first love was being fire chief. And, yes, did he start a business? Was he a businessman in Bismarck? Yes, he was. But he still loved being fire chief, probably above anything else. He was in that position when he died in 1935, but he had to give that position up for an 8-year stint in the middle of that, from 1919 to 1927, because he served on the city commission of Bismarck during that period of time. And he didn't start the plumbing and heating business until 1908, the year my father was born. Because of the fact that he grew up working in a hardware store, I'm sure they had customers coming in buying things to either put in plumbing equipment or heating equipment in their homes or repairing it, whatever. And he started thinking, hey, there's a lot of people that need this kind of help. Matter of fact, he was probably giving them advice like guys in hardware stores or Menards do today. And he said, we could probably make a living out of this. And I can't confirm that, that's my belief, but that's probably why he started a plumbing and heating firm. There was no air conditioning until the 50s. But plumbing and heating, they certainly did. And again, when they started in 1908, they used horses and wagons to go to their jobs. They didn't, my father remembers that it was 1914 when they got their first car. That would have been in 1935. And the business was located on North 3rd Street when it first opened in 1908. But in 1925, it moved to its current, or to 205 South 7th Street. And we were there for 52 years. So in 1935, when he took over, we would have been in that building. And that's the building that when I started sweeping floors as a kid right out of grade school, that's the building that we were in. Well, that's also the same building when I came back in 1975 to help manage the company. We were still there. And I don't think it was a whole lot different in all those years, because in all the years that I was alive, from going down there as a little boy and coming back to help run the business, it hadn't changed at all. It was, I mean, there may have been, when I came back in 75, there was a fax machine or a photocopier. There was some new equipment, but the shop was the same, the pipe racks were the same, everything was the same. So I assume it was much the same that whole period of time. When I came back in 1975, there were, I became the 23rd employee of the company. There's an ad in 1961 in a paper that it talks about the fact that H.A. Thompson and Sons had grown to 10 trucks. So if he had 10 trucks, I assume that he had double-digit employees in 1961 too. So many of the years of when we did the Provident Life building, I'm sure we had double-digit employees, maybe 25 employees doing that whole building and stuff like that. So it's been up and down, but it was 23 when I came back. And today we have 100 in those 5 locations. I graduated in mechanical engineering from UND in 1971, but I also got a commission in the Air Force that day. And so I went and flew in the Air Force for 4 years. When I came back in 75, it was really interesting because Dad said, come back, we need you to help run the business. And he took me down to the office the first day, and he sat behind his desk for 45 minutes with a cardboard box on top of his desk, going through all the drawers and picking pieces of memorabilia. And when he got done, he picked up the box, walked over to the door, stopped, looked back at me, and gave a sweeping motion with his arm and said, "It's all yours," and he left. And he never came back. It was, I was expecting this period of mentorship, but that didn't happen. So, I was like every kid. My dad worked and we had this business, and you didn't realize how long you'd had the business, and you didn't care. You were a kid. Who are we playing in baseball tomorrow? Stuff like that. When I came back out of the Air Force that first day, and my dad spent 45 minutes with me and left, I thought, wow. The first thing I thought of was, okay, I better set some goals. And there was a pen on the desk, and it said, serving the region for 67 years. And that's when I really first started thinking about this thing as a legacy. Because, wow, 67 years. I thought of that. We'd been in business through a lot of very difficult times, a couple world wars and the Depression and all that kind of stuff, and we're still here. And I thought, that's quite an achievement. I had first thought, if we've been in business for 67 years, let's not make too many big changes right away, because maybe you're going to upset the balance that kept it in business for 67 years. But that, just saying I'm not going to screw things up was not a very high bar to set. So I started thinking of other things, and I thought, okay, let's get this business to be 100 years old, run by the same family. So that gave me a goal of, I have to run this for 33 more years. And that's really when I started thinking about this as being a legacy and not just, I came back out of the Air Force into a job. No, I came back in, this is my family's legacy. You have to do this. It's, when we reached 100 years, that's when I really thought about it, when I had to sit down and write the history of the business, and you really started to think about how it became a legacy and not just a business or a job. And ever since then, it's been a very important part of my feeling about coming in every day. It's not just to do my job, it's to perpetuate this legacy.
Help tell the stories of Bismarck's past and become a financial sponsor of this program. Contact info@bismarckhistory.org to learn more.
As you know, it was a very different company at the time that we moved back in 1975. There were 23, 24 people that were working in the company at that time. And over the years, I have to say that I am just so proud. Under his leadership, the company has grown to the point now where we have 100 employees, and we do work all over, not just the state of North Dakota, but the surrounding states. But it wasn't something that just happened. He worked really hard at it. One of those dads that was very involved with our daughters growing up, and never missed any of their activities or anything. But after working all day, after dinner, oftentimes he would go back down to the office, because at that time he was trying to bid the job, secure the jobs, bid the jobs, and do all of the things that were involved with procuring the work to running the job. And so there were many nights that were very late for him. It wasn't without risk to grow the company in a lot of ways, but it was also really exciting to grow into the kind of work that we do today, because it's expanded well beyond what it was when he first came back. And it has it's been a lot of fun watching all of this take place.
We wanted to make sure that the family business stayed within the family. We couldn't necessarily see somebody outside the family running the business, and it had to be something that Jennifer and I both wanted to do together. So we made that decision several years before we decided to actually come back. It had to be the right time in our personal lives for us to transition jobs and back into the business. But we knew quite a while before we came back that was what we were going to do.
In 2006, my dad faced a health crisis, and ultimately it turned into him having open heart surgery. And I would say probably 6 months after he had that surgery, my sister and I were both in Bismarck at the time. She had come back from Chaska, and we were visiting with our parents, and she and I had an opportunity to go out and by ourselves. And we were just talking about our dad, and what had something happened and he wouldn't have survived the surgery, what would have happened to the company? We knew that our mom would probably not be real interested in continuing on with the company, because at the time she was near the end of her career with being a school counselor in the Bismarck public school system. And we talked a little bit more, and we knew how strongly our dad felt about the company. It's his life. He's grown up with it. He's lived and breathed it for so many years. And we could tell that after he got through the surgery, that it was weighing on him. What ultimately am I going to do with this company? Because my sister and I were clearly in our careers at that time. I was working at Dakota Medical Foundation, and she was managing a very successful optical store down in Chaska.
We produced a video for our 100th anniversary in 2008. And I think there were some heartstrings that got pulled there because they realized it wasn't just a job running the company, the family's business. It was our family's legacy. And when they put together the heart problems that I had had, and gee, what if Dad were to die? Who's going to run the family business? And they talked it over a lot amongst themselves. We didn't even know about this because when they were growing up, I never pushed them. They never worked in the company at all, and not sweeping floors or anything like that. And I'd never pushed them to come back because I didn't want them to feel pressure. I had already bought both my brothers, my 2 former sisters-in-law, and their children out. So the only people who had stock in the company now were Claudia and myself and our 2 daughters. And we had a board meeting one summer, and I said, well, Mom really doesn't want to run the business if something should happen to me. And Jennifer said, Tracy and I have talked about this. We're going to come back and run the business. So, it's very unique to have a multi-generational family business. You not only have to have people who want to, who are willing to, but who are capable of doing it. And there's a lot of times when things are tough because business is very cyclical. There are a lot of the tough times that people give up because they say that, well, this is too hard. I could work for somebody else and make more money and spend less hours working. And that happens in every generation. Fortunately, even though it's happened, we've never had anybody give up.
I think it has been great that we have been able to work with our dad. There's sometimes decisions that she and I want to make that we want to make sure, well, what would Dad do? And get some ideas from him. And, he was used to before making all the decisions. And sometimes it's easier when you're the only one making all the decisions. Now all 3 of us want to weigh in on things, and sometimes my mom as well, depending on what the decision is. But there's every day we're learning from our dad. He's a wealth of knowledge, and it's great that he's willing to share that all with us.
The impact it's had it's probably not something that I can tell you because that's felt by other people. But I know that we've been involved in the construction of the Giving Life, the mechanical systems, heating, cooling, plumbing, in many iconic buildings in Bismarck. And from that standpoint, we've affected a lot of people. Over the years, since we've always done service, we've been in thousands of buildings. We've never done construction much outside the Bismarck region, within 30, 40 miles of Bismarck. We've done some, but not a lot. And for most of that time, until 1992, we confined our service work to mostly Bismarck too. And in 1992, we changed our mode of operation, and we started doing HVAC service work all over the state. So we do it throughout North Dakota, into northwestern Minnesota, northern South Dakota, and we have 5 offices. We not only have the office here in Bismarck, but we have an office in Fargo, an office in Minot, an office in Gwinner, Newtown, and Garrison. And we have people spread out all over the state to service commercial buildings. We do no residential service outside of Bismarck. we've been real citizens of Bismarck, okay? Like we already said, my grandfather not only was the fire chief from 1901 to 1935, he was also a city commissioner from 1919 to 1927. My father served in the North Dakota State Legislature in 1955. And I believe the reason he didn't run for re-election was because it wasn't until he got in the legislature that he found out that as a business, he couldn't do business with the state. Well, being in Bismarck with the Capitol campus and the state penitentiary, you're lopping off a fair chunk of potential business. So I think he decided not to run again. He entered politics one more time. He was Harold Schaefer's treasurer for his campaign when he ran for governor. And besides that, we've all been on in leadership roles in fraternal organizations, educational organizations, philanthropic organizations, vocational organizations in the community throughout the time that we've been in business.
Help tell the stories of Bismarck's past and become a financial sponsor of this program. Contact info@bismarckhistory.org to learn more.
I asked Pa, I said, "What do you think, Riverwood, Pa? Do you think that'd be a good name?" So I submitted that name and I won it.
Remember when the Capitol burned? I looked out and there was this black stuff going by the window.
The president of Woolworth at the time's name was Kirkwood.
My parents decided, I think my mom decided, that Bismarck needed a zoo. So